The Big Beautiful Bill was just passed and is being called the most sweeping piece of legislation since the American Recovery Act of 2009. Now, on paper, it promises progress in sectors of housing, healthcare, safety, immigration, and other sectors, but for landlords, it couldn't have come at a worse time. Now, with the rental market already under an immense amount of pressure, this bill could be the tipping point. And in this video, we're going to break down exactly what's inside the bill and how it impacts landlords and the steps you can take to survive through this housing change if you are a landlord and even thrive in this market during the aftermath. Now, let's talk about what the Big Beautiful Bill is. Here we have an article from the White House .gov website that was posted on July 4th, 2025, when the bill was actually passed. Now, today, President Trump officially signed the One Big Beautiful Bill into law, and this is being called a once in a generation piece of legislation that makes good on its campaign promises and puts America first. Now, this is what it means for Americans. It is the largest tax cut in history for middle and working class Americans, according to the Joint Committee on Taxation. The bill will most benefit workers and families making less than $50,000 per year. Bigger paychecks of 10,000 plus, more in annual take-home pay for families, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on social security, a $12.5 billion modernization of our air traffic control system, permanently increasing the child tax credit for more than 40 million families, permanently securing our borders by finishing the border wall and hiring thousands of new ICE officers and border patrol agents, driving down energy costs with massive expansion of domestic oil and gas production capacity, a tax deduction on made in America auto loan interest, protection for 2 million family farms from punitive double taxation, creating Trump accounts for every American newborn, restoring fiscal sanity by cutting 1.5 trillion in spending, strengthening the Medicaid by eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse, and blocking illegal immigrants from receiving Medicaid, funding the Golden Dome missile defense system to confront 21st century threats, and modernizing our military to ensure it has the resources to be ready, lethal fighting force after 4 years of Biden era weaknesses. Now, this is what's coming from the whitehouse.gov websites, and it's very interesting. If any of you want me to make a video breaking down any of these singular points that they're addressing here, please let me know in the comments and we'll go into detail on what all of this actually means, because it is something that's going to affect everyone in America, whether you're American or not. And it's important, especially if you're, you know, in the housing market, when it comes to security, when it comes to medical, when it comes to taxes, and much more. Now, in this video today, I am speaking specifically to the housing side of the bill and what it means for landlords, specifically landlords who have a strategy where their primary tenants are tenants that receive vouchers or Section 8 programs, because this bill affects those structures directly. And if you recall back during COVID, when there were several different programs that honored tenants who weren't able to work, and regular landlords weren't being paid for an extended period of time, it was Section 8 landlords who actually stood the test of time, and they were fine and their heads were above water because Section 8 is a government assisted program. So even though working class Americans who weren't getting receiving any pay and couldn't pay their rent, Section 8 landlords, they didn't miss a beat because their tenants continued to be able to pay. And we seeing how valuable government assistant housing programs are. Well, this bill here is going to change a lot of that, and I want to get into some of the changes that's going to be coming to the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. Now, under Trump's proposed One Big Beautiful Bill, which has been passed. It was a proposal for quite some time, and now it actually has been passed as of July 4th, 2025. There will be major cuts in rental assistance. Now, 26 billion in reduction. There will be a 26 billion reduction in rental support funding, including Section 8 vouchers and public housing under this 2026 budget request. The amounts that amounts to about 43 to 44% of cuts to HUD's rental assistance budget. Now, also, instead of federal vouchers, funding would be converted into state administered block grants, and states would determine eligibility off of that distribution. Now, the vouchers could be capped at 2 years for working age non disabled recipients, potentially leaving them without support after the cap. So, if you know about Section 8, there initially was no cap. You can have Section 8 for as long as you like. And as this does hinder some individuals who get on some of these programs and have no ambition or have no um interest in growing out of the program, this bill will push people to quote unquote get on their feet. So people who use these programs, I don't want to say misuse them because you never know a person's situation, but what has been happening is there are people who get on certain programs, and you can include this with the food assistance as well, and they have no ambition to start working because they know that if they start to work, their food assistance and their housing assistance could be cut. Well, with this new bill, they no longer have that decision. That decision isn't being made by themselves. Now there's an out exterior force that is going to that has put a cap on the time that you can get and stay on these programs. So it looks like about 2 years, and this is a proposed. This isn't the exact details, but this is around with the time will be. So I don't know if it's 2 years cap exactly. It may be a year, it may be 3 years, but it will be somewhere around there that it will be a cap. And obviously, it depends on each individual person. People with disabilities and things like that. Obviously, this would be a different situation for some of them versus a person who is working age and non disabled, as they mentioned. Now, experts worry that states lack capacity to handle the shift that will need to be done, which will create delays or inconsistent support that could lead landlords to refuse vouchers. Now, vulnerable groups is obviously elderly, disabled, or low income families. They are in the midst of facing evictions, increased homelessness, and fewer long term housing options. Now, this is a big issue for America in general, the United States, for Americans, is because we already have homelessness issues that needs to be addressed. We already have eviction issues that needs to be addressed. We already have a long-term housing option issue that needs to be addressed. Now, these were problems that we had prior to this bill passing. And while this bill is put into place to solve some of these issues that we have, it's leaving a lot of people wondering and a lot of people worried that that's not the case, that this bill is actually going to make some of these problems worse. Because if you start to play with the housing where people have homes and they've had homes and now they're being put under pressure with the new stipulations, this is going to force more evictions, which is going to force more homelessness. And not only to regular citizens, but also to children. And this is going to be another problem, a bigger problem that we could possibly face in the future. So that would be something to keep an eye on. Now, on the positive side, the bill expands low income housing tax credits, potentially boosting affordable housing construction by 500,000 to 1 million new units over the next 10 years, which they're doing that that's an attempt to address the housing availability issues. But many warn that building more housing doesn't immediately help current Section 8 recipients who rely on direct rental aid. And this reminds me of an article that I just read about how there is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of luxury apartment complexes that's being built every day that has that has gone that has gone and has been sitting empty because they no one can afford to move into them. And I'm going to do another video breaking that down as well. So instead of investors and funds focusing on affordable housing for the middle and working class, more investors are putting their money and their support into luxury housing, and they're wanting to cater to the wealthy. Okay. Now, obviously, the wealthy are the ones that can afford this, but the wealthy also have more options when it comes to housing, and a lot of them can build their own homes, or they can choose various different options when it comes to housing. But the middle to working class don't have those options, and we're not even going to get into the lower class and the options that's being stripped from them. So it seems like there's no one supporting the people that needs the support the most. And this is why we have such a gap in housing, and has become a disparity because no one is focusing on the people that need the focus. Everyone wants the money from the people who has the money to give. But the people who have the money to give, they have so many options that majority of the housing that's available to them, they don't purchase or they don't need because there's only so many places that they can live at one time. Now, the bottom line is the bill proposes direct cuts to Section 8 funding, replacing it with state block grants and introducing time limits on the vouchers. Now, that does jeopardize the housing stability of millions, particularly the elderly, disabled, and low income families. Although more affordable housing might be built, that does little to support the people who are currently struggling with their rent. And this actually is a hindrance whether the Congress approves, some of the state funding or not. And that hasn't changed since this bill has been passed. So while some may see this as a step into the right direction, and I do as well on certain things when it comes to the housing disparities, I'm not sure if this is one of them because it's not moving at a fast enough pace to help the people that's in need of the help right now. And if you are a landlord and you find yourself in this situation, this is where we can find solace in the rental market as landlords. Now, you may be thinking, what can we do? Because what I've noticed is a lot of landlords are trying to keep up, as a lot of the investors are, with making housing available to people who can afford it. But with landlords who aren't that wealthy, who are just a regular independent investors who don't have as much funding as more wealthy investors, that leaves some of us trying to play catch up and scramble and figure out where we're going to fit into this. And we want the working class to rent our units as well. So a couple of things that we can do to stay competitive in this market to make sure that we continue to cash flow our rentals versus getting put in situations where our rentals are staying vacant and we're not able to rent them as well because maybe we're overpriced. We're having to price our units higher than we like to stay competitive in the market. But what happens is if we're pricing our units to stay competitive with some of the other larger investors, it takes a lot of money for us to update our units to get it anywhere close to where their units are. Okay, and then no one wants to pay. But then if we don't stay competitive, our vacancy rates goes up. Our turnover rates goes up. Our eviction rates goes up. So a few things that I do within my business and other landlords who are successful in these type of markets, things that we do to stay competitive. And especially if Section 8 is your bread and butter, if you are a landlord who picks Section 8 specifically because you wanted to continue to receive income regardless of what the economy is doing, and it was a cushion for you and you weren't being threatened, and now you're being threatened, a few things that you can do is one is get creative with your strategy. Now, why Section 8 isn't being outlawed altogether, it is going to be cut tremendously. And the time period is going to be cut. So we don't know where this is going to take us long term. And one thing that you can do is get creative in your portfolio. So creative financing options, being a pillar in the community to help with affordable housing. Now, this is something that a lot of landlords don't want to hear, but this is what the market needs right now. And it's all about supply and demand. So we don't have the luxury to do what we want to do. And a lot of times we get emotionally involved and we just want to rent what everyone else is renting, the prices that everyone else is renting for, versus getting creative and making our rental units more affordable. So creative options is going to be one way that you can diversify your portfolio and make sure that you're not cut out the market altogether. If you need help with how to do that or what that looks like, I have plenty of resources in the description box to help you make your properties competitive, but also make them stand out so that you can continue to cash flow and get the money that you deserve out of your properties versus settling and getting put under pressure where you're not generating any income or getting cut out the housing market altogether. A second option is to diversify your portfolio by purchasing properties or doing investments in nicer areas. Now, I'm not saying go the luxury way because as we can see, even those units are sitting vacant because the majority of people who need housing can't afford them. But I'm speaking about the areas, the B and C areas, where people who have decent income, the working class who have decent jobs, where they can move there instead of the lower level properties that were majority of the Section 8 properties are. Now, you can still do Section 8 in some of these areas, but even though it's not done in abundance, it is possible long as you stay compliant with what the Section 8 housing authorities would like your property to look like. But you also can get creative in those areas and you can generate income and generate cash flow with your property in those areas, and you can help fill the gap and make affordable housing available. And that's what's going to happen. That's what the market is pushing us to do. And that's what us as landlords and homeowners are going to have to realize. The market needs affordable housing. And we have to get to a place where we take our emotions out of it. And we need to give the market what it needs, which is affordable housing. And there is ways that we can do that. And that's what this channel is all about. So if you want to be a part of that need, that is what's going to make you a it's going to make you a lucrative investment and make you a lucrative investor by helping with affordable housing. Because if we continue to let these big corporations purchase all of our properties, now they dictate the market. They dictate what the prices are. They dictate who lives where and do what. And anytime you have big corporations owning majority of the real estate market, that is a recipe for disaster. So us as the people, in order for us to take that power back, and in order for us to balance out the market and be able to help with the affordable housing issue, we're going to have to start being more creative in our housing strategies. And that's what we're doing here on this channel. So thank you for watching this video. I hope it helped you out a bit. Go ahead and subscribe and like the video if it helped you out at all. And if you want to stay following this channel, which we're going to continue to put out strategies to make sure we're feeding the affordability of the housing market, which is going to help more people become homeowners, what's going to help more people be able to move into areas that's safe for their children and for them to be able to have access to the best schools and have access to the best food. That is what the market needs right now, and that's what we're aiming to do here. So thank you for watching this video. Until the next one, peace.